I think we are still scratching the surface of what we can do with electromagnetic motors. And by that, I mean, like we have modes like chains mode or eccentric mode, things that people may have seen in the gym, people having it like, adding heavy chains or, having 2 foot down and 1 foot on the way down on the eccentric, 2 foot on a leg press on the way up. We have modes and opportunities just to change that with the touch of a button. So you can change the resistance profile between reps, within reps. You can automatically spot, and they're awesome. But there's a lot more that we can do to maximize people adaptations.
Welcome to the Greg Bennett Show. I'm your host, Greg Bennett, and this was an enthralling conversation with Troy Taylor. What I loved about this one, it has a little bit of everything that I am into myself, whether it be high-performance sport, tech, health, and then plenty of business as well. We break down the company Tonal, where Troy has been the last 3 years, and it was really cool just to listen to where they're at, where they've been and where they're going, and Troy's involvement and the impact that they want to have. A lot of great takeaways in this one. I thoroughly enjoyed it. I hope you do as much as I did. If you are enjoying the show, one big favor, one thing you could do for me is share it with your friends. I'd love any reviews you could give me on Apple as well if you get the chance to review or give me 5 stars. Is really appreciative. I will be doing still Fireside Fridays. I've done probably 50 or 60 of them now over the last 6 months. I've absolutely loved them, but I will be just the next couple of months, maybe just a little bit less as I'm traveling. So, but if you are interested in connecting with me one-on-one, I am still open to doing some. It just maybe not as many for the next couple of months until I get back from travels. I hope you enjoyed this show as much as I did. And remember, success comes to those who endure just one moment longer. All right, today's guest is a towering figure in the convergence of technology and sports and fitness, with a remarkable career that includes roles in 7 Olympic Games and leading innovations in sports science. He's been at the forefront of pushing athletic performance to new heights, from directing sports science initiatives at US Ski and Snowboard to shaping the future of fitness with Tonal, a state-of-the-art home fitness system that uses AI to provide personalized strength training. As a director of performance innovation at Tonal, he leverages the world's largest strength training database to revolutionize how we train, enhancing human performance through cutting-edge technology and data-driven insights. Today, well, we're going to explore his journey from the Olympics to the forefront of fitness technology, exploring how advancements like Tonal are transforming not just how athletes train, but also how everyday people enhance their physical fitness and health. So, without further ado, welcome and thanks for joining me on the Greg Bennett Show, Troy Taylor. How are you, mate?
I'm doing really well. Thanks, Greg. Thank you so much for having me on. Super appreciate it. That's quite the introduction. I hope I can do that.
Yes, I am known for just enjoying a solid intro. Most podcasts that I've been on myself, they say, oh, we'll do the intro separately. I'm like, no, I want to hear it. So I like to put mine up front and always get the reaction from the guests. But mate, where are you at the moment?
I'm up in Toronto, Canada. I'm not based here. I actually used to live here for about 5 or 6 years, but I'm based in Park City, Utah, most of the time in the mountains. But we at Tonal have an office up here, so a couple of days working with some of the hardware and software team that are based up here.
Nice. Well, it's a strong Canadian accent you got.
Yeah, it's so confused. Probably not too dissimilar to yours. I sound more Australian, but I'm from Britain, lived everywhere. Yeah, confused.
I know. I've learnt as an Australian. I actually, there was a woman at the gym 2 days ago and she said, oh, we're from the same neck of the woods. And she was very British. And I said, well, I'm Australian, actually. I've just had to learn to slow down a little bit and pronunciate a little bit more. And so I sound a little British, I guess, but maybe not to you, but
I think I went the other way. I sped up and pronounced it with less. So I'm just like,
Well, we must know a lot of the same people. We were talking pre-show about our mutual friend, Dr. Dan Plews. Big shout out, mate, who's been on the show, and we were singing his praises pre-show. But your role even at the USA Olympic team, my wife raced for the US in multiple Olympics, and I feel like there's probably a lot of people that we know in the same realm that might pop up during this conversation. But how long were you at the US team Olympics? And they're based in Utah, are they?
Yeah, in Park City. That's
right.
I originally moved out to US ski and snowboard actually after the Athens Olympics. I worked the Athens Games for Team GB, and then after the Athens Games, I came out to Utah. I wanted to do something different, have a different experience. I'd coached soccer in Long Island, New York, in the Hamptons, which is a very nice part of the world. And I was like, man, I got to move to America. Everything's like the Hamptons. And so I kind of, after the Athens Games, I wanted to do something different. I'd been skiing, I think, twice in the Alps as a kid. And I was like, I basically pestered them into giving me a job as a physiologist traveling. So I did that for a few years for the Torino Olympics. And then I left, went back to Britain, up to Canada, did a few different things, but came back in 2015 as the high performance director of US Ski and Snowboard. And so it was from there till 2021. So 6 years, including the Pyeongchang Olympic Games.
Wow. Okay. Well, you skimmed over quite a lot there. And that was like you said, you've sped up the way you speak. Look, in this show, I'm really excited about discussing tech and AI and how that's going to impact and how it is impacting fitness and sports right now. It's a big interest of mine as I left sport myself and have spent the last sort of 5-6 years spending most of my time in tech and now in AI and health. So very excited to have you on this show. But what I'd like to do is just start by rewinding the clock. I mean, you sped right over your whole career there, but I'd rather let's rewind it back and just tell me, when did your sort of passion for sports and fitness and physiology first come about?
Yeah. Typical childhood story of loved sport. And I mean, I loved sport, pretty much anything and everything, but mainly soccer, but also not extremely talented, and actually not that dedicated either to work.
Oh, the honest truth.
Unfortunately, the combination of factors was definitely meaning I was never going to be an elite athlete myself, but I loved it. And so, like many people, in high school finishing up, what am I going to go and do? And I was like, well, I think I might want to be like a PE teacher or a physical education teacher, or maybe I want to go into something like personal training. And I tried, so I went to university, undergraduate degree in kind of sports science related topics, which is, we're talking, dating myself, but like late 90s. And so it's sort of, just taking off in Britain in terms of that was actually a university degree. There was not many classes or universities that did it. Did that, enjoyed it. Then I sort of took a year out. I was like, I'm going to try this, like personal training or PE teaching. I volunteered at a bunch of situations and quickly decided that neither were for me for a long-term career. So I was like, well, I better go back to university and figure out, give myself a little more time. Went back, did a master's degree in ex-phys. And that's where I kind of really started to see there was an opportunity for a career working with athletes. I volunteered for the British Olympic swim team for I think the 2002 Commonwealth Games, it probably would have been.
Manchester, was that? Manchester?
When a bunch of the Australians were actually overrunning the team. So Bill Sweetman, who's a very famed swim coach, he was sort of the head coach there. I basically fell in love with it around then. And it wasn't a glamorous job, right? You're collecting heart rates, lactates, doing some hydration status, which is not the most glamorous job. But I really enjoyed working with athletes, working with coaches, and working with other practitioners. And so did that, got a job almost immediately out of university, doing the same thing for another university, and working with some of the EPL teams back in the early 2000s and some British track and field athletes that were in Athens. And so, that's where it started. And then, did the US thing after that. Was there for 3 years, something around that. And then Britain got the 2012 Olympics were awarded right around that kind of period. So lots of opportunities came back. sort of came back as a senior physiologist, working. Probably the only time I've really worked in triathlon. Not that I've worked a bunch, but with I was associated, not closely, but worked with a lot of people that work with Helen Jenkins.
Helen Jinksy and Mark Jenkins, probably some of our very closest friends.
Very cool.
Yeah.
Not super close myself, but that she was based out of Swansea. I was based out of Cardiff, and so it was the closest I got to working in triathlon directly. And then in 2010, so just sort of I guess a couple of years before the London Games, I kind of got poached to go over and head up, be a director of sports science for the Canadian Olympic team based out of Toronto, across a whole different bunch of sports. But rowing, that's where I met Dan. He was the rowing physiologist for New Zealand. I was the same for Canada at the time. So we spent time in various different regattas around the world and the 2012 Olympic Games, setting up recovery tents next to each other and things like that. And then, did that. It was 5 years. That was a really sort of huge growth period in Canadian sport. They had the 2015 Pan Am Games. So we got to build really nice training centers, lots of investment around there, grew the team from about 10 sports scientists and at the start to a team of over 50 at the end with both sports science and sports medicine. And then came back to the US as a high performance director in 2015, and that's really where my the interest in tech took off. Was the combination around there.
Mate, that's fantastic. And were you in Canadian rowing? Did the men's 8 get a gold or silver in London? Or I remember we were living in Victoria, Canada, and we got to know some of the guys. And I just remember being in the Oakley house. And I was so excited to get a pair of Oakleys. And we were kind of, Laura and I don't know, in the world of triathlon, if we kind of take those things kind of for granted. And I think the rowers, it's a pretty tough road in terms of being professional or getting anything. I just remember these huge men getting Oakley sunglasses. But did they medal in Rio? In London? I can't remember.
Yeah, both men's and women's 8s got silver medals.
That's right. Okay. Well done to you then, because that was huge. People that know rowing would know to win the 8s is the big one. You know, my whole family grew up rowing, but it's a big deal to medal at the Olympics in rowing. So kudos, mate. Huge.
Yeah, no, it was actually one of my most favorite sort of times of working with Olympic teams on both the men's and the women's side. Like I've obviously been fortunate to do quite a lot, but the dedication that people like rowers do, it's not a most glamorous sport. You're not getting a big payday at the end. No. You might not get a ton of recognition. And so you're purely doing it for the pursuit to be the best person and the best thing that you can. And it's a really cool environment to see people collaborating, eight huge guys or very, very talented females, and then one small cox coming through.
That was me, mate. I was a coxswain in my high school days, and all I wanted to do was row. But, mate, you know who I'd love to have on the show is Stephen Redgrave. Arguably one of the greatest Olympians of all time, and obviously, from Britain. Was he 5 Olympics and 5 gold medals?
I want to say 5 Olympics and I think, was it 92 or 96 he started? I think it was 92 in Barcelona, and Britain was not a good Olympic team back then in 1992 or 96. I don't know how many medals we won in Atlanta, but it wasn't many.
Yeah.
And he almost ignited single-handedly Britain's passion for sport again.
Wow.
It was pretty impressive.
So he must have got gold in, not to drag on about Stephen Redgrave, but 92, 96, 2000, 04 and 08? No, really? I think he did. He did 5 Olympics. Anyway, if you know him, if somebody knows him, introduce me to Stephen Redgrave. I'd love to have him on the show. But let's move on, mate. You've spent an amazing period, in high-performance sport. And then you hinted there that you sort of have lent into tech. I want to spend a fair bit of this episode talking about Tonal and its impact in the world of fitness and sports. I want to make it clear to everybody listening that I haven't actually used Tonal, and nor am I endorsing it in the sense. What I really wanted to do is I'm just fascinated by tech, AI, and how we integrate it into sport, fitness, and everything overall. So, and having you on here, I got very excited about having this conversation. But maybe let's start with explaining what Tonal is for people that don't actually know what it is, and they can go look it up on tonal.com. But
yeah. So Tonal is a functional trainer, so a dual stack cable column, if you'd like to think of it in terms of a gym. So it's got some arms that come out. The special thing about it is it doesn't use mass or iron to create resistance like a dumbbell or a kettlebell or a barbell or even a stackable cable. It uses electromagnetic resistance to create the resistance profile. So the easiest analogy, you'd kind of think about moving from like a combustion engine car to a Tesla. It uses motors to create that resistance profile, which means a few things. Means that it can be really small. So it's like, it attaches to your wall. It's 5 inches deep. Obviously the arms have to come out for you to do the exercises and wide, but when it's not being used, it's a very small and sleek piece of equipment, so you can fit it easily in your house. And also, like almost much like, not that I've used a Tesla or a Tesla endorser in that way, but much like ludicrous mode on Tesla, where you can do these crazy things, you can kind of do some of that. You can manipulate resistance in ways that have never been done before, or unique ways that might have better physiological outcomes for training. And so we can talk about those and maybe a little bit in detail and further. But so it's small. It's also connected to the internet. It has a touchscreen TV where you can stream coaches. It collects a lot of data, 50 times a second, every single rep of every single member.
Wow.
So you perform this really, really large data set around proprietary information about training. You can integrate a phone camera for pose estimation and artificial intelligence. And so essentially it's the combination between like hardware, software, and human performance is essentially what it comes together at.
Wow. It's one of those things you start to talk like that, and it's like I can see every home in the future just having a tonal area. I mean, I'm sure that's probably on your success roadmap, but I kind of go, it sounds almost too good to be true. But I mean, when you look at what you've learned from all your athletic and Olympic endeavors over the years, how has that kind of influenced what you've been able to put into Tonal yourself? Or when you joined Tonal, was it already up and running, or have you been able to sort of build it from the ground up?
Yeah, so no, I had a board member that was sort of a board member of US Ski and Snowboard, gave some money to the Olympic team, who was a board advisor for Tonal, and that's how I first got connected to the company. And honestly, I was pretty skeptical when I first heard of it. I'm like, of
course, yeah.
He was like, you should try this. And I'm like, it's home fitness equipment. We're an Olympic team. The Olympic Training Center for the ski and snowboard is great. It's a 45,000 square foot training facility. It's kitted out. It's, I've probably spent way too much money on training equipment for various different Olympic teams over the years. I'm like, home fitness equipment is not where we're at. We need this thing. And he's like, but he was a donor. And I was like, yeah, well, we should probably try it just to pay a bit of lip service to him. And so I sent a staff member out to LA because that's where Tonal's showroom was. This is in 2019, the back end. And I wasn't expecting him to like it, but he came back and said it was great. And I'm like, wow, I'm shocked. So we got one for the Olympic Training Center. It was being sent over right at the pandemic shutdown, mid-March 2020. Yeah. And so I didn't know what to do with it because I wasn't sure when my training center was really going to open. But like athletes are training at home, they need training solutions. So I was like, send it to Michaela Schifrin's house. Michaela Schifrin is a pretty successful skier, most successful female alpine skier of all time, or skier of all time now. And so send it to her house. So we did. I got to try it shortly after. I absolutely loved it. I thought it was an incredible piece of equipment. And it sparked this kind of the possibilities of what could you do on scale with this type of equipment. And so another year went by, and they came and I stayed in contact and ended up moving over to run the performance team. So the product was up and running. And really the basis existed before ever I or my team got involved. What we've really focused on in the last 3 years that I've been here is bringing the best of evidence-based practice and of sort of all the things that we've learned from me and my team, from Olympic sport or from personal training experiences or from other kind of associated like training experiences, really embedding a lot of those principles around how we address or tackle problems for members at scale, like at huge scale, which is the exciting thing. It's like you're not working one-on-one, you're working on like 1 to 100,000.
Isn't it beautiful? I love tech for this reason. It's like amazing how it just opens doors all around the world, right? I mean, but you're not just tech. You have the hardware, so that's a whole nother ball game on top of just building an application or something. People need these. They need the actual piece of hardware in their home. On that, how many customers does Tonal have right now?
Roughly. We don't give exact numbers, but I want to say there's somewhere north of hundreds of thousands of monthly active users.
Wow.
So yeah, I couldn't actually tell you exactly the number.
No, that's all right. I mean, honestly,
plus monthly active users.
I feel like Tonal and Peloton have had to get themselves back to neutral after the pandemic. You guys were, Tonal and Peloton were the darlings of the pandemic, if you like. It was everybody had, was running out to get home gym equipment. And I can only imagine what it was like in the chaos of trying to fulfill orders and keep up with the growth that happened during the pandemic. But then you had to come back down to earth. Was that a whole big transition? Were you a part of that? Were you in Tonal for that unbelievable, acceleration of growth and then having to get back to neutral and, rebuild?
Yes. Yeah.
Yeah. It's like,
I think I joined, or at least I signed the contract, I think, to join the same week that I think we raised one of our series. It's publicly available, but hundreds of millions of dollars of venture capital funding to, basically accelerate growth. In my second month, I think, on board, we were shooting with LeBron James for commercials, like the GOAT level kind of stuff, which is just, it was unbelievable. It was a crazy time, and I think I was employee, I don't know, 200, 250, something like that. So the company was relatively established, but also relatively small. And so the next, 6 or 9 months, while it was still very much in the pandemic, very much venture capital kind of investment, Peloton was, sky high rocketing in terms of valuation and market cap, was honestly just trying to scale to capture as much of that opportunity as you can, and hanging on for dear life as you try to do that and scale while also trying to build infrastructure. And then so that was sort of 6 or 9 months, and then it was really around the sort of the end of 2021, early 2022, where market dynamics changed pretty dramatically, pretty quickly. Things opened up in a way that they hadn't before. Venture capital money went away. So like the whole business economics, back then the model is very much like you put GOAT level athletes, LeBron James, Serena Williams on TV commercials. That's not cheap. And that it's costing you a fair amount of money to get every customer, but you're trying to grow as much as possible because you take advantage. Very quickly, the venture capital money that funds that marketing, it was not there anymore. And so then you're turning the business into how do you become sustainable, scalable, almost overnight, which was a lot of hard decisions, cutting back on staff, refocusing and doubling down efforts on terms of organic growth and utilizing our membership and lots of there. So, and that takes a while. I think pandemic, I think Peloton's probably still going through that. I think we grew, but probably not to the same level as they did. And so we went through many of the same challenges, but probably on a slightly smaller scale. And then the last sort of, I'd say, 6 months or so is like, okay, we've got through that. We've righted the ship. We have a great business model. We have tiny churn, 0.6% a month is our churn.
Wow, that's unbelievable.
Low.
Yeah.
And so you've got a great business model. You've got hundreds of thousands of users. Okay, well, now we can take a bit of a breather, or not a breather, but like set yourself up.
Get back to neutral and regrow. Yeah. And was Peloton at one point? Peloton, did you guys almost get acquired by them, or was it the other way around? Weren't they at the height Were they looking at?
I saw those reports. I can neither confirm nor deny.
There's no way that there wouldn't be conversations between Tonal and Peloton, because I kind of look at Peloton as the focusing more on the aerobic, conditioning of sitting on a bike or running on the treadmill, and you guys have the strength component, and together there is a nice home gym. The combination
of the number of our customers that have both. I think something like 25 or 35% overlap. That would have both. There's definitely some synergies there. Some differences too, but some synergies.
No, definitely some differences. But it's not a stretch to say, if a merger or acquisition came around that, you'd be like, that kind of makes sense at some point. Not that I want to. Maybe I'm putting something out there that shouldn't even exist, but for me that kind of makes sense. But okay, let's just go. Because I'm going everywhere. Is that something that would interest you if you could, being the person, your background and understanding the importance of strength combined with, aerobic conditioning, would that be a nice thing to have in the sense of going, hey, we got the strength component. It'd be nice to just do what we're doing and add in an exercise, a more of a complete exercise program?
I'll try and answer semi-directly, but also evade. I am a huge fan of fitness and training, of both aerobic and strength training, and I think both are hugely important for lifespan, health span, just like maximizing our time spent on this earth. And I think both are really useful. So I think people should do both. I do not want to speak ill of any company I don't know, kind of thing. I'm really interested in the training side of it and the improvement side. One of the tactics that we need to utilize that is make it engaging and entertaining. But that is almost a means to an end for me personally, given my background and where kind of things. But I want to get health outcomes for people, and hopefully you engaging in any type of aerobic training will be good for you. But I like it a little more on how do we optimize for that. And so I think that's one of the areas where I think Tonal focuses, where Peloton doesn't. It's about the sort of the outcomes that our members are getting, not necessarily the engagement. And I think they go hand in hand. But that's where my personal passion was, or push and passion is.
Yeah, they're two different experiences at the end of the day, and the way one delivers the education, the way you empower and the way you entertain a consumer are different. They are different culturally in the way they like to do things. So, yeah, I get what you're saying, mate. And I look, that wasn't even a question I'd written down. It was just as my brain was going, I wonder. Look, can you tell me more about how Tonal utilizes AI? And AI is an expression that we throw around, but the large language model of collecting all this data analytics how does it help users in their strength training? How are you utilizing it?
Yeah, so we're very much a technology at our core. We're a fitness technology company, but technology at our core, and so it's embedded into pretty much everything we do. But so I'll just pick out a couple of the higher level stuff. So I think one where we essentially do a machine learning algorithm where we can test your strength. We do an isometric strength assessment at the start for 4 movements. We use an AI algorithm that then can get, with over 95% accuracy, I think it is, your strength on every movement in our 250 in our movement library.
Wow. By doing just 4?
By just doing 4. And
wow.
I shouldn't say this, but the team are pretty confident they can do it in 2. As we get more data, we get more accuracy and more kind of focus.
What are those? Sorry to interrupt, but what are those 4 exercises?
It's a deadlift, a bench press, a pull down, and a bicep curl, I want to say. It doesn't actually matter. We can probably do it with any 4 movements.
Okay. Oh, gotcha. Okay. Yeah.
As long as they hit some slightly different muscle groups, like an upper body and a lower body. But you run a neural network algorithm, and you can kind of map that distinctly. So that's one way. So immediately people can come in, they do these 4 assessments in these 4 movements in 5 minutes, and immediately you're getting a training program that is tailored to you individually. Wow. So that's sort of one way. We do a lot on sort of content recommendations. Okay, hey, you told me you're 45 years old, you want to build some muscle, and you've got you're a beginner to strength training. Go in the database. Here's 25,000 people that look like you. These are the programs that they chose. These are the results that they got. And then you can refine it down and sort of make, okay, well, let's recommend this to you based on this very large data set of people that are similar to you or look like you. And you can refine that over time because you can start looking more and more what is more like you and kind of use that model to refine the algorithms. We use another one. We have a pose estimation, artificial intelligent pose estimation model. So if you set up your phone camera next to Tonal, we'll screen your phone onto the Tonal so you can see yourself perpendicular side on, but we'll run a pose estimation model over the top, which will be able to assess your form. Hey, you're not going low enough. You've got a little knee valgus. You look like you might have ankle flexibility issues. And then you can cut using coaching cues, internal or external, all the stuff that we've done from sport. How do we make change in people? So those are some of the ways, but we're also just getting started. We just passed 200 billion pounds lifted on Tonal for our members, 6 billion reps.
I love that. That's what your numbers, your internal numbers. That's awesome. 200, what was it? 200 billion pounds?
200 billion pounds.
Lifted.
6 billion reps.
You've got to put that into an equivalent of we're lifting, the whatever building 1,000 times. I don't know. You need to put it so people can understand what actually 200 billion pounds might actually look like.
I think it's the Great Wall of China, like twice or something.
That is awesome, mate. I had no idea, by the way, and so I'm very impressed and blown away by where you're at today, what you're capable from, even like you said, having the side on with the camera and being able to look at your form. What do you see as the future? I mean, you guys must have a bit of a roadmap and look at 3 to 5 or potentially even further forward. What are some of the things that excite you about potentially what you could build into this in the future?
Yeah, so much. I think I'll take it in 3 different areas. I think we are still scratching the surface of what we can do with electromagnetic motors. And by that, I mean, we have modes like chains mode or eccentric mode, things that people may have seen in the gym, people having it adding heavy chains or, having 2 foot down and 1 foot on the way down on the eccentric, 2 foot on a leg press on the way up. We have modes and opportunities just to change that with the touch of a button. So you can change the resistance profile between reps, within reps. You can automatically spot, and they're awesome. But there's a lot more that we can do to maximize people adaptations. I'm all about this combination between highly engaging but also highly effective training, and how do we play in that balance. And I think there's a lot more that we can do, and we are working on and will do in around manipulating resistance profiles to make it both engaging and effective. The fact that we're a closed loop system in that you can prescribe the weight, monitor as someone is lifting, and then change it in real time is a unique opportunity. So I'm excited about the work that we're doing around that. I can't say necessarily exactly what features are going to come out in the next 6 months based on that, but there's definitely a lot of work around there. The second one is on the data side, and really even going to the next level as that data set goes from 200 billion pounds to 300 to 400 to £1 trillion, and it's increasing not an exponential rate but at a very rapid rate. We're going to be able to sort of start really being able to integrate into large language models. We released a beta in that kind of space. So, hey, this is your individual training history over the last period of time. You ask me, you tell me you've only got 30 minutes to train today. Here's the single best workout for you based on your own individual data. And there are, £500 trillion lifted or whatever it might be. And we can kind of personalize it on the fly. Tomorrow you've got an hour, so we can change that session on the fly. And we can kind of manipulate around there, but really utilizing that data set in combination with large language models, I think is really exciting space. And then the third one, and there is no no product launch that is planned. But I see one of the really exciting things about this role for me was democratizing strength training and high level strength training to much more people. And so that, part of that, we're relatively expensive. It's a relatively expensive piece of kit. It's $4,000 for the hardware, $60 a month. And so over time, I hope to see that we be cheaper options. How do we make that more accessible for more people?
Yes.
And obviously I think that, any technology that is new and innovative tends to cost a little more to start with. And the gross margins are not that impressive on hardware, as I learned when I came over. So, but over time, you're going to see things that become cheaper. And so how do we scale this even more? I think are probably the three areas I'm most excited about.
Oh, mate, there's a lot to unpack there. I'm jotting down notes going, this is so cool. My brain's already running. And I'll start at the end of what you said there and kind of thinking of yourselves as a data science company. And how do you collect even more and more data? Because that's how these large language models are built. And coming up with ways to get into more homes, whether it be freemium versions or very low cost. It actually feels like it could be even a stronger win for you in terms of data collection, right? It's one is kind of we need the revenue generation to be able to keep ourselves afloat, and so we need to be able to sell these, these hardware things, but potentially there's a freemium version on application without the hardware that can still utilize what you do, and somehow you guys are still collecting data. I don't know, but my mind immediately thinks of as data as the number one commodity, and so how do we collect more in terms of physical training?
You could think around digital only opportunities. If we've got this data set of how we might bring that to a broader kind of thing, whether that's a freemium or low cost subscription model. No plans to work in that space right now, but certainly has it's a conversation that we have frequently around that. There is something really unique right now about the quality of the data that we collect. It's not just data, it's 50 hertz of every rep for every person. And so that does require probably some hardware for a little while longer, at least, if not a lot longer. You could imagine ways that we are trying to increase data capture. And then there's the integration of data play, right? We have a HealthKit integration, so we can get all of HealthKit data. If anyone plugs into HealthKit, we can get all of that. But you could think around the wearable space and what might be integrated.
Yeah. Are you partnering with people, Whoop, Aura, Apple Health, Google, Garmin, whatever? I mean, it seems like partnerships and creating this almost companion in your pocket fitness trainer. Through HealthKit is where most of the applications go, just because it's the easiest right now. I think you could envisage in future ways that we might integrate with other wearable technologies that are a finer level of granular data to be able to bring those insights to members. But right now it's through HealthKit, and so you can plug most stuff into. So you can get the number of hours you slept or your step count or whatever it is. These additional data sets that can help additionally refine algorithms. Hey, you didn't work out yesterday, so Tonal, pre HealthKit integration, would say, oh, you should be pretty fresh. But the HealthKit data will say, actually, you did a 6-hour cycle ride, so you're probably actually pretty tired, so I shouldn't recommend a leg workout. Maybe let's recommend a recovery day. And so you see those data integration opportunities. And so they already exist, and I would imagine they will expand over the coming years. It's only a matter of time, isn't it, where all these APIs from all these various platforms start being connected more and more and more, and we have this ultimate coach.
That's kind of what's happened in elite sport. The analogy from elite sport back to fitness, right? With athlete management systems, AMSs, that have sort of become very popular the last probably. I bought my Smarter Base. It wasn't called that in 2009. So it's been around for 15 or so years now. Most of these, they're basically data aggregation opportunities, right? They take an API from your Catapult data that you might be wearing, your Whoop data, or your first beat heart rate variability data, your wellness scores, potentially your tonal data, or your whatever your sort of thing, and then allow people to make an opportunity. That's been in elite sport for a while. I think in the last 5, maybe 6 years, that's really hit stride for insight generation. And I think you're going to see a very similar approach to consumer fitness at the topper end. The people that are really dedicated to their consumer fitness will have a very similar opportunity to get these different data sets and have algorithms that make recommendations and suggestions based off of that.
Yeah, it's amazing, and it's happening so fast. Who is your target market when you're selling these products? Because my mind immediately thinks, okay, you got the baby boomer generation with all the money, and a lot of them actually don't want to belong to some of the big chain gyms and things, and they want to work from home, but they're not very good at the early adopting kind of technology and saying, yes, I want to go with this. So who is your target market?
Yeah, it's a really good question. So like in the pandemic, everyone was the target market, and that's what you do. I think as we've come out of that, and in a lot of what we're messaging is people that are already resistance training or people that see value in resistance training is number one. But the average Tonal customer, and I'd say we have customers from 18, that's as young as we allow, like in terms of buying, or maybe 16, but to 80 plus. We have a couple of 90-year-olds on the platform. So we have entire span, but the vast majority, about 60% of the members are between 30 and 50, average age of about 45. So they're basically me. They already have some resistance training experience. They tend to be married or cohabit and tend to have their own homes. That's kind of your like target demographic. So resistance trained, middle age, time pressed, like to work out, but don't necessarily have to go to the gym all the time because I've got lots of them have kids. And then I would say we've got 20% of our members that are like, I think 50 plus or 55 plus. I don't know the exact number, but a decent chunk, tens of thousands, if not more, 55 plus year olds. And certainly as more data has come out around the value of strength training, not just for longevity or lifespan, the duration of your life, but the quality, the health span of those lives. And aerobic training is very important for that. But I think what is probably missed is strength training, frailty,
mobility, stability, all of that, right?
Yeah, that's all strength and power. And so there's a really, I've noticed a shift in the last, honestly, 5 years, but even more in the last 2 of quote unquote later Gen X and maybe boomers that are seeing the value. And one of our stats that I think is really interesting is our members, the older our member, the more likely they are to self-identify as a beginner. So the older members are not these resistance trained, experienced people. The older members tend to be more first-time beginners. I'm just getting into strength training, which I think is I take it as a heartwarming thing that we're making a difference and people are valuing that, but that you are seeing the older generation are recognizing the value of strength training. And I suspect that will be a space we will want to continue to lean into for the reasons you started. There's obviously a lot of them own their own home. They generally have a higher levels of household income or net worth. And now there's this science supporting the value of strength training for them.
It's fascinating when you think that Tonal has the world's biggest data collection of strength training data, that you are in a position to talk about the benefits of strength training and all the various success stories throughout the generations. You know what I mean? Like you can actually show that if an 80-year-old who's never done strength training before, you can show improvements, right? You can potentially show their improvements in strength, if we're talking stability, mobility, all sorts of things, because you're collecting that data that you can actually say, hey, if you're a 52-year-old man, in my case, and okay, I've had some experience, but you still can find benefits like this because we can show you the exact data. I mean, that becomes an incredible marketing arm for you as well, right? I mean, it's huge.
Yeah, absolutely. So in December, we released what we called the State of Strength. And it was an analysis of 175,000 of our members that trained over 52 weeks. So a year long, longer, but we capped it at a year with 175,000. So not the full membership database, just a subsection. But we set a low bar of like they had to train, I think, at least I'm going to say 3 to 6 times in that given year on Tonal or something like that. So it wasn't a high bar. The average increase in strength for a 55 plus year old in their first year on Tonal, 73%. 73% stronger at the first year. And it's we see similar changes across our entire membership, but the idea that it's never too late to lift, you can make strength changes, much later in life, is 100% out there. One of the stats that I love is one of the underappreciated benefits of strength training for the older population is not just strength and muscle mass. Yes, they are important and highly associated with health span and lifespan, but it's actually power. Power is probably the key variable, your ability to move quickly, to apply force quickly. That's what gets you out of a chair, up the stairs, walking across the street, those activities of daily life. Female members, I want to say, who trained deadlift once a week, I want to say, don't quote me, I shouldn't quote myself on exact stats in the podcast, but over 100, I want to say 140% increase in deadlift power in the first year. That's a really functional movement. They're getting stronger, they're getting more powerful, and that's awesome. It's great marketing material for us, but it's also great outcomes. And these are mean changes. These are not people that trained 4 times a week only. This is the mean of the group, the average. And so you start going, the people that the 5,000 people or whatever it is that train 3 times a week, 4 times a week, 5 times. Yeah, there's an exponential, but an increase in their outcomes even more so. But just the average outcomes are pretty impressive.
That to me is the incredible business you have, and this moat that you have in terms of collecting all of this data. Hardware in itself is not an easy thing for somebody just to go build and duplicate. So you've got that around you. The fact that your churn is so minimal, does it work? Forgive me, I probably should have done a bit more homework, but if I buy the Tonal either through a financing or buy it outright, is there a subscription model on top of that then, or how does it work ongoing? Or once I buy it, I'm good?
No, it is you buy the hardware, there's a subscription on top that's a 12-month first year you have to do, and then you can opt out after the first year. So that's $60 a month. So it's not cheap. That's for not per individual, but per Tonal. So if you've got multiple people in your household, I said most of our members cohabit or have kids. And so you can divide that by there, but it's the equivalent to basically a gym membership for an person. So it's not cheap. But that's the business model is in the annual recurring revenue of the subscription. The hardware business model is not a great one to be in.
Well, no. I mean, I wouldn't even say it's not cheap. It is what it is for what you're getting. Yeah. And I think one of the drawbacks, if I was to think about, as we all went through the pandemic and lockdown, there was a lot of experimentation in here, is that we missed socialization, which for me, when I think about health span, longevity, we always talk about physical training and sleep and nutrition and mental strategies.
Social connection is huge.
The social connection. How is Tonal approaching that? So if I've got one on my wall, I'm at home. Is there any way you're able to create a sense of community and social?
Yeah, so it's different, and I'm not going to claim it's identical, but
no. But
we have live classes, so you can go in there and you can high five other sort of live members that are working out.
And it's all on a TV monitor or something.
It's on a TV screen and kind of there. So you can kind of virtually high five people around there. You obviously have a interaction with the coach on the screen in terms of you're not necessarily. Some of it's pre-recorded, but there is the human kind of connection through the TV screen there. And then the biggest for us is we have a vibrant Facebook community, the official Tonal community. It's, I think 55,000 people or so are in there. There's I don't know how many posts, 100, 200, 300 posts a day of because we have these, there's 300 programs, 5,000 workouts. You can create your own. But we release new ones every week. And at certain, about 2 or 3 times a year, we run these, community challenges where everyone does the same program at the same time. And you'll see 25,000 people enrolled in this same program, posting their workouts, what they liked, sometimes calling coaches not so nice names for pushing them a little hard. But like there's a really like vibrant community. I tonight have a tonal talk in the Facebook where we'll do some education session on science and application of goals. And so there's these ways that we create these social connections without it in a virtual environment. Some of the members are really intuitive too. They've set up their own like virtual workouts where they'll Zoom each other as they're working out. Sometimes so there's these ways that we kind of make it more social.
No, that's great. I'm just curious. I'm wondering how many people, I mean, maybe you know this, how many would have a gym membership and a tonal at home? Because I'm thinking of myself, one of the things, I love going out to Lifetime, the new gym we have here at Palm Beach Gardens in Florida. Big shout out to Brahma Karate and his whole team at Lifetime because it's an amazing gym. And I'd call it almost more of a club than a gym because it's just so many great people. But I also think of, I spend a lot of days at home behind a desk and some days I can't get out to the gym. I've got kids. To your point, I've got some free weights at home, but maybe having something that's a little bit more interactive and it's getting to know how I perform would be a better setup. But do you have an idea of how many people kind of do both?
We don't actually. There are some stats. So I can't call them off the top of my head. But I would say it's not the majority, but it's quite common where people will have either free weights at home in addition to that, or have a gym membership. Outside of tonal. Well,
how about you? Do you mix up?
I'm an exclusive home gym. I have free weights. I bought them before, before I had a tonal. I've been with tonal almost 3 years to the day. So what's that? A little over 1,000 days. I've logged 1,500 workouts on tonal. I exercise and I don't work out every day.
I was going to say that's you're doing multiple times a day. Then you're just turning up and. Yeah.
I exercise snack. I'll go in. My tonal is literally behind my desk that is on rollers. I'll finish a Zoom call. I have 5 minutes. I'll push the desk out of the way and do a couple of sets.
Well, they're saying that's the best way to exercise now anyway. You're better off doing, 5-10-minute workouts than you are 1 50-minute workout, right?
Yeah, I think that there's definite benefits for constant small pieces of activity during the day. And so I'll log 4 or 5 on workout days. It's not the only way that I train, but certainly on those busier days, it's where how I choose to train to get my training in. I'll do 4 or 5 1 to 2 set workouts over the course of the day. So I haven't squatted or used my squat rack for probably more than about, less than 100 of those training sessions over the last 3 years. I still use it occasionally, and I'm not against free weights. There's nothing bad. I just want people to train in generally for the health benefits. If it's on tonal, free weights in your home, at the gym. But I don't go to the gym. I don't actually miss it. I work from home mostly. But there are some people that need that. I just prefer working out on my own pace with my own equipment.
I get it. And look, I was like that forever too. But I must admit, I've enjoyed having this Lifetime facility. What does success look like for tonal? Like if you're standing here in 5-8 years, and you're at the top step looking back, what is the ideal success sort of destination that tonal's aspiring to?
Yeah, I think if we've done our job well, looking back in 5 or 10 years, it will just be the size of the impact that we have made on people's lives, on the quantity of people's lives.
Yeah.
Like the magnitude of the impact that we're making on our current members, is huge. I pull it up because we recorded a video, but I remember Arlene, 66 years old, 2-time cancer survivor, just passed 3 million pounds in this video. And it basically changed her life. So the magnitude of impact that we are having on our members is huge. It's the scale of that impact that I think is going to be where we're going to think about it. And yes, there's business reasons why the scale is impact and what that
of course
recurring revenue. But for me,
we're all capitalists. Well, we're not all, but
Yeah.
Most of us are capitalists.
Yeah. But for me personally, like that's the byproduct of
course,
upgrading people's lives.
Yeah.
Like we have some stats. I want to say, Oscar in my strategy team pulled this up recently, but members that are more than 3 years old and still have their membership work out on average more than 10 times a month still. 3 years old, still working out at least 10 times a month or more.
That is amazing retention, to be honest. For something that you think somebody's going to buy it, put it on their wall, and it's like, you know, it's like my walking treadmill that I bought, a couple of years ago. It's like just sits in the corner. I don't think
it's like the business case. Like you could argue, it's like, well, as long as they keep paying you, you don't mind. I'm like, well, no. For me to reach my goals and for the owners to reach our goals, people need to continue to use it, and they are.
Where do you think the most growth can be then? I mean, is it going international and getting into India and South America, or is it specific target audiences? Like I think the golf community would be a huge. I was looking at the athletes on your website with Serena Williams, LeBron, Curry, Sharapova. See, obviously tennis, but I didn't see any golfers on there, and I thought, well, I would have thought the golf community would be all over this one.
Yeah, we've done some work, probably not with some high-profile golfers that are out there. We certainly have done some work in the golf community, and I think something you'll probably see some more of us doing. I think it's, honestly, I don't think it's like one target market, and that's part of the opportunity, part of the curse of a company like Tonal. You could see applications in healthcare and physical rehab. You could see applications in sport performance. You could see applications.
A lot more B2B type operations, I think, would be massive opportunities. Yeah, you
could see a low cost aversion that brings you to accessory. And so I often refer to as like we're like the college recruit for basketball that came out of colleges. Like that was the pandemic, the superstar. We raised the NBA, we hit it. We're having a solid couple of years, but like Jordan didn't win like his first ring for I don't know how many years before he became. Like you got this bit of period of maturing and of figuring out, and then you get started there. And I think we ultimately obviously want to capture all of those markets. I want to impact on all of those people. It's just sequencing the right opportunities at the right time. But like all of those are within our potential. It's really about tackling, like making sure that we're tailoring the product for the right fit at every stage. And we generally think about that like concentric circles, right? Where's product market fit right now? What's one step outside of that? More advanced, what's 2 steps outside of that? Healthcare, maybe B2B. Like you can kind of map your way out from that strong at the core kind of piece. But the opportunity is still huge to impact on more lives, including internationally at some point too.
Yeah. Look, I see the endless possibilities, like you're saying, and building small teams that are doing little sprints in certain areas to see if you can find product market fit in those areas, I think will be fascinating. Do you have it? Is it in multiple languages or is
only in English right now?
For
only
now,
for sale in America.
Yeah. Okay, so it's only for sale in the US right now. So obviously you start thinking there's enormous growth once you can, move out of the US, and that gets exciting for you. That's immediately when you think about turning the growth dial. If you can go international with products like this, it's like wow, that'd be ginormous. But
certainly something we have many conversations and action about. But yes.
Well, when you go through your next series, your next raise, because a lot of these often take, all right, we want to do that. Well, that's going to be another 50 million and bringing on the right people and getting into the right markets, and 100 million these days. It's a big commitment, and it's kind of like, how do we do a little sprint into that area to see if it's going to float without going too far in? But incredible, mate. Sorry, you're going to say?
No, I was just saying 100%. It's it's not cheap, and to test into it, it certainly makes a ton of sense.
Mate, I could talk to you for hours on this stuff. I hope you can tell that, but this is an area that I get very excited about. Combining high performance sport and the high performance mindset, I think more than anything. Combining that with focusing on fitness and health for all, using tech as a driver is very, very cool. So I want to, before I let you go, I just have a few questions I ask all my guests. And is there anything else you want to sort of touch on tonal before we kind of skip on a little bit? I should.
No, I think we've covered a lot.
I'm great.
I'm excited about that combination too. That's why I kind of left this elite sport job, because I think this is probably the only job outside of elite sport. Don't tell next time I negotiate a raise, but this is the only job I wanted to do outside of elite sport.
I'm going elsewhere. No, I'm not. I love it. Well, mate, okay, first question. What would you tell your 18-year-old self?
Oh, good question. I would just say that, follow your dreams, be a nice person. Like, that's about it.
I love it. Simple, but to the point. All right. 3 people you'd want to have dinner with, non-family, ideally. They can be living or dead.
Yeah, I thought about, you sent this question in advance. I've been really fortunate to have dinner with a lot of really awesome people, high performance, like some of the best coaches in the world. I pick my best friends. I don't get to see them as much. I live in a different country. One of them's a deputy ambassador of South Korea these days. We get to see each other a few times a year. I would pick my best friends over pretty much anyone else. It's where I'm happiest.
That's probably why you got best friends and you're 45, mate.
Yeah, it's true.
You actually care and you reach out to them, and I think that's
not anywhere near as much, but that's why I want dinner.
No, you know what I started at the beginning of this year was I feel like I hadn't been a great friend to a lot of mates, and a bit like you, I'm in South Florida and building friends down here, don't get me wrong, but friends are all over the world. And so I actually reached out to 20 of them and said, right, I'm putting you on my calendar for an hour conversation. So let's book it. And it was really awesome to start the year with all these conversations with your mates. And even though it was Zoom or whatever, it was, it wasn't as good as being in person. But I almost feel like I want to do that every 6 months. Just say, look, let's reconnect, catch back up, because it gets hard, right? Life gets in the way. But anyway,
time flies. And what you were thinking was going to be, there's a time when we were all young, single, we'd meet up, even when we were all over the world, we'd meet up every 6 months to play golf and that. And now, we're married, we got kids, we can't do it as often. And so, making time for that, I think, is super important. And not getting younger. So,
Good man. All right. Well, where do you see yourself in 5 years?
Yeah, I honestly, very similar, like just bigger impact. Doing a lot of the same things that I'm doing currently. Just the scale and the size of that impact, but it's pretty awesome right now. The opportunity to impact on millions of people is where I'd love to see myself.
Awesome, buddy. Awesome. All right. This one's not meant to be a morbid question. It's more just, how would you use the remaining days if you had 6 months to live?
I'd pick up my family and I'd go and visit all those friends.
There we go.
We would do round the world trip. We love to travel.
How old are you? How old are your kids?
6 and 8. So.
Oh, you're around the same world as I am. I'm 4 and 6, but yeah.
Yeah.
Cool age.
6 and 8 is better to travel with than 4 and 6. 4.
I know. I'm about to go to Australia in a few days' time, and from South Florida all the way to Australia, it's like, I know. We're getting ready.
So we probably do a few around the world trips and go and visit all those people.
Oh, you're the man. Hey, let's finish with some rapid fire questions. Are you ready?
Yes, I'm terrible at rapid fire, but I will do my best.
No, these are easy. Morning workouts or evening? Although you did say you work out all through the day.
No, morning. If I don't start at 8:30, I don't start at all. So I will start in the morning.
Same. All right. One book you'd gift to a friend.
7 Powers by Hamilton. I can't remember his last name. It's a business strategy book. I find it fascinating.
Cool. Thank you. And I'm your friend, by the way. When I ask that, I'm always looking for new Audible books. So that's cool. Is it Audible? Have you got it?
Yeah, it's on Audible. Yeah.
Cool. All right. One gadget you can't live without.
Tonal.
Okay. Let's try that again. One gadget you can't live without that's not tonal.
iPhone.
Yeah, fair enough. All right. You're British, so this will be good. Coffee or tea?
Coffee.
Oh.
Yeah.
So British after all.
I drink tea if I'm at home in my parents' house and they make tea.
Isn't it funny? I'm the same when I'm back in Sydney with Mum. I actually feel like having tea. I don't know. It's different. Yeah. All right. one country you haven't visited, it's on your bucket list.
Oh, I've been to a lot of countries. I've never been to Bali. French Polynesia, actually. French Polynesia.
Love it. Love it. Is that New Mia? French Polynesia? Or is that separate? I don't know.
I know. I just see these huts over the water. That's beautiful. Like,
oh, yes. You're talking Bora Bora.
And they're going underwater relatively
Tahiti
to make that trip before global warming gets them.
All right. Greatest movie of all time?
Untouchables.
Nice. But you're going to be more like me and say Chariots of Fire, but okay. Untouchables.
I'm sorry.
Two most used apps on your phone?
Text message and I can't say the Tonal app. FaceTime.
Well, you can say Tonal app now. I mean, Tonal app would be right up there, I'm sure, because that's
my Tonal app and probably Aura app. I use Aura.
Yeah. I use Aura over Whoop. Yeah.
Yeah, I used to have Whoop. Nothing against either of them.
Just trying different ones, yeah.
I got grandfathered into Aura. And so
what do you think of the Garmin? Its latest Gen 2 stuff.
I haven't played with it, not the new stuff.
No, nor do I.
I love Garmin generally, particularly if I was an endurance athlete. My wife does Ironmans or 70.3s.
Oh, does she?
Yeah.
Right.
She's the endurance athlete. More
awesome.
Strength power.
Good on her. Well, has she got any events coming up that you're supporting her for?
She is trying to work out if she's going to do her first full in Sacramento or Wisconsin this year. She's just kind of figuring that out, but she's coming off a couple of injuries. So it's her first. She's been doing triathlons for I don't know half a decade or so. She
good
did
on
her first 70.3 last year or 2 years ago. She's done a couple of them now, so she's just working out if she wants to do her first full this summer or not.
Oh, big shout out to her. Awesome. All right, last couple: mountains or beaches?
Both, but I live in the mountains.
Yeah.
Utah's
pretty awesome. All right. Best decade of music.
I love some. The 90s were terrible, but it was what I remember, so I'm going to say the 90s.
Yes, you're just a little bit younger than me.
Awful, but so many good memories there.
It was, look, when you think of Third Eye Blind and I don't know, like there's some really...
It was like Oasis and Blur back in the
yes.
Yeah. It started with like more like Vanilla Ice and Ice Ice Baby, I think, if I remember.
Yeah.
Some dance and some house.
Red Hot Chili Peppers, are they 90s? I think they are, aren't they?
Probably. Under the Bridge might have been a little earlier than that, but yeah.
Well, Troy, this has been absolutely fantastic, mate. And between you and me, I hope this is the start of a connection between the two of us, because I feel like there's a lot of commonalities. And it's just really inspiring to hear the work that you guys are doing at Tonal. I love your success metric of really impacting the world, like you've talked about. And from the way you speak, it's evident that it truly does mean the world to you to do that. But I really appreciate you coming on. For people that want to get in touch with you or understand Tonal more, what's the best avenues that they should go to? Yeah, for Tonal, the tonal.com is the website. You can find all about the product there. If you want to do more like member stories, join that Facebook community, the official Facebook community. You don't have to be a member to do that, but you can kind of see like what I'm talking about. I'm not making this up. You can see Eileen in there posting every day. Cool. And then, I'm also on Instagram, Strength Science Troy, where I share science-based Tonal training, basically, and Instagram. And LinkedIn, Troy Taylor, just link me up in the show notes. Perfect, mate. Well, this has been wonderful. Thanks again for coming on. I really appreciate you, buddy. Thank you so much, Greg. It was a great conversation. I appreciate it. Cheers, mate. And for everybody else, you can find all the show notes and timestamps and everything else at bennettendurance.com/media. All right, stay on the line, buddy.